What's up, community? So, I wanted to jump in on this conversation because everybody seems to be talking about April 8th. And honestly, it was not even on my mind until one of our subscribers mentioned in the comments and says, "Hey, you should do a video on this April 8th thing." So I'm going to do it, and we're going to throw it into our Superstition Ain't the Way series. So before we jump into this, go ahead and make sure to like the video if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell to get alerted, and also we do have merchandise. Check it out. I did upload some new stuff, so check it out. And also consider volunteering. We need your help. Let's build intentional community. Okay. So let's jump straight into this. Oh yeah, join our Patreon, join our YouTube membership tiers. Okay, so let's jump into this. The upcoming April 8th eclipse has sparked a range of interpretations and attachments, particularly among those who view celestial events through a spiritual or biblical lens, which is very interesting. Okay, some see it as a divine sign, or a divine signal or manifestation of God's power, or a prophetic sign marking significant global or spiritual shifts. And so, I have composed a few notes on this. I want to make my notes bigger so that I have old folks' eyes, So, but I did have some thoughts on this, So let's kind of break this down a little bit. Let's start with the most extreme views, all right? And so I want to categorize this in three ways. There are three people that I'm noticing, or three types of ideologies that I'm noticing that are being attached to this April 8th phenomenon outside of the scientific community and the astronomical significance. So that first category are just the extremes, right? The extreme believers, the fanatics, or whatever you call them. These are people who believe this eclipse is a biblical sign of the end times, or that this eclipse is a biblical sign of the rapture. So there are some people, unfortunately, and it's you almost want to say it comically, but in this case I want to say, like, we should probably say this soberly and really think about what that means for our species right now, that there are quite a few people who are expecting to disappear tomorrow. They are expecting to be raptured away into Never Never Land. Like, this is, I mean, it is comical. There definitely is a comical aspect to it. I mean, yikes! The jokes just write themselves, don't they? But also, it's a very sober thought. Like, holy crap! Like, humans in 2024, they're expecting to disappear tomorrow into Never Never Land, right? But or there are some who are a part of those same extreme branches who are not necessarily expecting anybody to disappear tomorrow. They're expecting this to be the marker of the end of the 7 year period, or maybe it's the beginning of a different 7 year period. It is very interesting because, like, at what point, when is enough enough? How many times do you have to guess at this and get it wrong till you say, "Hey, I'm probably not good at this, and I really don't know what the hell I'm talking about." It seems to me that if Christians were gamblers, they'd be broke, like dead broke, because they keep going back, even when they've already been demonstrated to be wrong, not to have an actual understanding of what the hell is going on. So those are the extremes. But then there's also fringe, your fringe superstitious people, and they may not identify with any particular faith. Ideally, they may not identify with any Abrahamic faith, so they're probably not Muslim, they're not Jew, which or Hebrew Israelites. They're probably not Mormon, they're not Catholic, they're not Christian or any of those things. They probably describe themselves as more spiritual than religious, and so there are a lot of those, and there are a lot of labels and a lot of non-labels. But within those groups, it's not about a rapture, it's not about the end of the world, it's about superpowers, and that's kind of funny, like, I mean, that's still just as sad. I think so, and I mean, and who am I? But I'm like, oh man, because I've actually run into this one. This one is just as repetitive as the end times. but somehow much more entertaining. I actually had a friend that was living with me at one time who sincerely believed back in 2007 that there was this eclipse that was gonna 2017, sorry, that was gonna give people superpowers, and that they were gonna turn, I guess Super Saiyan 8. I don't know, but it was gonna be like a scene out of The Last Dragon where old boy is like putting your head in the water and he's like, "Who's the baddest?" And he's like, "Show enough," and then you get up and you're like, "I am," because you're like glowing with the aura of the eclipse, I guess, right? And it's just like, hmm, that's interesting. Now, how anybody could attach themselves to these ideologies is beyond me. Now, I'm an author, so I am not against speculating at all. As a matter of fact, I enjoy speculative fiction probably more than any other branch of fiction. It's just when we separate ourselves from the ideology of this being fiction that it becomes problematic. So I mean, if you want to stand outside and just be like, "Oh man, what if we could get superpowers from eclipses?" I'm more than willing to engage that speculation with you. But if you take that extra step and be like, "Man, we're getting superpowers from the eclipse," you, I don't think I want to be friends with you after that. So all right, so those are the fringe superstitions. All of the fringe superstitious groups, regardless of what their labels are, they all seem to be attached around this idea is that tomorrow, like, their superpowers are going to be on fleek, and so hey, let's be on the lookout for that. And I'm gonna jump into my thoughts in this in a few, but I did want to just kind of give some caveats here. And so I've dealt with the extreme Christians, I've dealt with your fringe superstitious groups, and now it's not just fringe Christians. It's not just extreme Christians, but those people who are um, extreme adherents of certain Abrahamic faiths. But this last one is the safe Christians. They're the safe ones. So they're not going to attach this event with anything like the end of the world or anything like Armageddon or the rapture or the rise of the Antichrist. Not your safe Christians. It's your Christians who've already realized they can get away with bullshit that are going that far. But your safe Christians are typically going to say something like, and they are saying something like, kind of like your superstitious fringe folks, is this is a time of spiritual transformation. Yes, this is a time of societal change where philosophical ideologies, new ones, will begin to emerge out of the sociological zeitgeist of people. It'll be kind of like that type of thing where God is doing something mysterious, through people and, whatever. Or it will be they will attach themselves to the language end of the world, but then they'll add the adage as we know it. So it's the end of the world as we know it. After several Christian groups realized that these Armageddon prophecies kept falling flat, some started to shift over, and particularly within the New Apostolic Reformation and churches who attach themselves to that type of theology, they started to attach more so to the idea that no, this isn't a end of the world type of thing. This is the next evolution of the world, man. It's the end of the world as we know it. And so a lot of churches really took that hippie vibe where God is going to be doing something spiritual, where we won't really know what he's doing until he's doing it, until after it's done, because hindsight is 2020. It's definitely, that type of thing. Um, and so it's typically, hey, God's going to do something different. Yes, this God who doesn't change, this God who is the same yesterday, today, and forevermore, all of a sudden is going to do something different. When then they'll say, well, no, it's not a different thing because you're right. God doesn't change. It's a new thing. Okay, now, if it's a new thing, then it still is by definition different and therefore change. But then also I'd ask the question, what exactly does new mean to a God who is supposed to be of all time? Because new is a component of time. All right. So anyway, and by the way, of course, according to the Bible, if this book was indeed univocal, which of course we know it is not, then you would have to also hold this God accountable to the idea that there's nothing new under the sun. That was just a quick Bible study. So let me kind of jump into some of my thoughts on this. First of all, ideologies like this prey on our own mental lethargy by superimposing supernatural explanations as the only explanation in full ignorance of the very natural rationale that already exists. And so somebody has to convince you to believe that what they're saying is rational. And not only that what they're saying is rational, that it is actually a logical explanation, that it is indeed the best explanation, and in many cases that it is the only explanation. A lot of time what these groups rely on is your ignorance of astronomical phenomena. So it is them knowing that most of us are not engaged with these topics anyway. So some misguided or malintended prophet comes out and says, the Lord showed me that what this, eclipse means is this. Think about it. What else could it possibly mean? Well, if you're talking to an audience of people who are not astronomically informed, then they don't know what else it could possibly mean. But the truth of the matter is, we've known for a very long time, eclipses are not mysterious. Like, they haven't been mysterious to us, at least like as a group, as a species. Eclipses haven't been mysterious to us at least since 500 BCE. At least since 1800 BCE, we knew that. Actually, even later than that, earlier than that. Oh, that's weird. Is it earlier? Is it later? Who knows? But at least as early as 1800 BCE, the Babylonian Empire knew about these eclipses and knew that that they were not these supernatural events. And so, for the life of me, I cannot figure out why the fuck are we still pretending that there is not a body of information here when there is. There Okay, so that's going to make me hit another point, and I don't want to get there yet. So let me keep going. Here's my biggest thing. You don't get to hold on to arguments such as God cannot be measured by science, while yet insisting that God can have impact on measurable events that can be measured by science. The moment you put your God outside of nature, you nullify any possibility of interaction or relevance of that God in this reality, thereby neutering its capacity to cause any natural events that don't themselves predate nature. All right. So if you want to move God before the Big Bang, that's fine. Go right ahead. But when you do that, anything you say about that God doing anything today that can be measured is automatic bullshit. The moment you say that this God exists outside of the realm of measurability, the moment this God lives outside of the realm of measurable possibility, then this God lives outside of the capacity to cause any event that can be measured. Because then we could actually measure the event and say, something that we don't know about yet had to be here. This is how this is how we came to understand gravity. This is how we came to understand dark matter and dark energy. It wasn't actually by interacting with those things, but because those things are still a part of the natural universe, they impact the natural universe. So the moment you put your God or your deity or whatever the freak you call it outside of nature, you cannot then say, oh, he's causing natural events. Does not work. So no. This is what it's a phony. It's kind of like that. Like, I don't understand that. It cannot be. See, here it is. If you have to make up your mind, either this God is in nature or outside of nature, right? And by the way, the God of the Bible is a natural God. The God of the Bible is no different than the Greek gods and the Roman gods and the Babylonian gods. It is a God of nature, and the Egyptian gods. All of these are gods of nature. These are gods who have impact on natural outcomes. All right. So when you do put your God outside of nature, just know you're no longer talking about the God of the Bible. At that moment, the moment your God lives outside of nature, you're dealing with the New Age God. Oh, this is good. We should pass the collection plate right there, right? Okay, so if so you got to make up your mind. He's either beyond nature or within nature. If he's beyond nature, then God will have absolutely nothing. There will be nothing to do with the eclipses and the signs in the sky. The reason why Christians believe these things is because their God is a natural God. He is a God that can close the boat of an ark. It's a natural God. It is a God that can appear in a burning bush. It is a God that if you see his face, you can die. This is a natural God, not a God that lives outside of nature, right? So, but we've already, for the most part, everybody who has, some good carousel of sense, we've already debunked the idea of this Bible God. The Bible God, we know this dude is not behind the creation of the universe. This dude does not close boats. Any natural gods, that idea doesn't exist because we can measure and determine that no, because nature is in our domain. So any God you put outside of that domain exists in a place that we cannot interact with anyway, and so is therefore absolutely irrelevant. All right, I don't want to drive that point home, but I want to drive that point home, right? So like when it comes to stuff like this, I don't argue about it because it's like no, like I'm not going to entertain this. No, All right, so it can't be that God is beyond measurable activity while also being the cause of measurable activity. Just doesn't work that way. One of these things is not like the other. One of these things is stupid. Okay. All right. I'm sorry. Just watched Split today. Maybe that did something to me. So Pastor Troy, there's a guy named Pastor Troy Brewer who interprets the eclipse, referencing biblical passages about signs in the sun and the moon and stars. He suggests that celestial events are God's way of capturing our attention and communicating with us. And of course, he's saying that because he believes in the biblical God. And the biblical God is a natural God. It is a God who speaks through the signs of the stars. But again, that God has already been debunked. Yes, he has. Yes, he has. Now let me stop. Okay, but no, I do mean that. I mean, let me stop as in not let me belabor the point. All right, now I find this whole ordeal disingenuous. Whew. Because out of all of the people promoting these ridiculous ideas, none of them are actually interested enough to invest time in studying astronomy or astrophysics to fortify their understanding of the topics that they so freely opine about. That is disingenuous. You putting yourself in a position to tell me that you are qualified to interpret astronomical events while simultaneously not being interested in astronomy is mind blowing to me. So I don't mean to sound like an elitist about this, but at some point you have to start asking yourself, how is this person qualified to state something on this particular subject authoritatively? And do I know enough about this process to even be able to discern the accuracy of information? All right, see, because those are two things you need in order for information like this to spread. Number one, you need an unqualified person opining about it, and then you need another person who knows they don't know enough and yet won't say, oh, I don't know enough. So what you need is a lot of pretenders in the room in order for ideas like this to actually catch on, right? You can save yourself a lot of heartache right there. Don't be the person who doesn't know, trusting the person who doesn't know. That's not a good strategy for life, right? So now I do want to close it here. What's important to know is that while astrological events, other than impacting events, like events that are going to hit the earth or events that are going to hit something close to earth and knock something off course, while astrological events do not have any significance on our humanity other than being a significant part of the operative structure of our universe, our beliefs and attention to these events have profound sociological impacts that, once deeply ingrained in the way we live, become cyclical enough to create the illusion of correlation, becoming more of a self-fulfilling prophecy in that manner. So, for example, my birthday is May 15th, coming up, by the way. So I've identified the majority of my life as a Taurus. Now, there is nothing about the stars alignment, because we don't even live under those constellations anyway. Stars move. But there's nothing about those constellations that actually have any impact on who I am or my personality. However, I do live in a society where many people believe that Tauruses behave this way, Scorpios behave this way, Cancers behave this way, Sagittarius behave this way, and so on and so on and so on. And because I do have somewhat of a sociological understanding of the world, I do know that these things actually impact how we respond to the world around us. So if people treat you like you're supposed to be a bull, you're probably going to act like a bull sometimes. This is socialization, right? And so now I find that to be absolutely fascinating. So yes, while these things may not actually have an impact on us, themselves, sociology is so powerful that when we begin to pay attention to these things and we believe certain things about these things, we will live out certain experiences to kind of justify our beliefs. It's absolutely fascinating. I can even use Nat Turner for an example, who used an eclipse as a sign that this was time for him to cause some, revolution. And then for him to be able to go to these other people and say, hey, listen, this eclipse is a sign that we should act and that we should do something now. Well, because they believed the eclipse was a sign, they acted on that information. That's a microcosm of the macrocosm of humanity itself. Because yes, we're still superstitious. We're going to get out of it, or I don't know if we'll get out of it completely. Because superstition is really just a manifestation of our ideas pre-imposed on our ignorance and then accepted. And so it's like, here it is, there's something you don't know, but then you're going to pretend like you know, and then you're going to accept that pretense as truth. That's ultimately how superstition works, which is why I speak so much on it, because it's not just something we do in our religion. We do this with our money. We do this with our relationships. We do this with how we approach business. We do this with how we approach work. We do this with how we approach our parenting. And so the quicker we can start recognizing that we do have a lot of these shortcuts to learning things where we're making things true that we haven't demonstrated to be true, the better, right? So pretending to know what's happening, that's not that interesting to me. And as of now, everybody who's saying something about April 8th, other than it being a solar eclipse, is literally pretending to know that something is happening. And that is not interesting to me. That's the exact reason why I got up from the children's table, because I don't like play. Even though I wouldn't mind doing some, cosplay and stuff, it seems kind of cool. But like play that's attached to reality, I don't want to do that. That's not fun. But actually understanding the intersectionality of our beliefs and reality, now that's a fascinating conversation, and one that I'll be open to at any moment in the game. So those are my little quick thoughts on April 8th. I hope I've said something that is of value, of something that is interesting, something that gets your mind going in any of those ways, and other than that, I think that's all I have. Please remember to like this video if you haven't already. Subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell. Consider joining one of our community entry points, whether that be through Patreon or through YouTube itself. And we do also have merch for those of you that do want to support what we're doing on the channel, but you want something tangible out of it. That's a great way to do that. I think our designs are kind of freaking awesome, and I plan on making them even more awesome. Also, consider volunteering. Let's start building a team around this thing so we can actually start reaching people. We're taking application for volunteers until mid-April. If you haven't seen the post in the community, I'll re-add it, but you can also go to my website, www.dldd.us. You can go to that website and you can fill out the volunteer form there, and we'll start making contact and reaching out mid-April. All right, that's all I have for you now. Until next time, keep rising, stay progressive, and stay beautiful. I'll let you.